This week, we find out all about Emily's time at the U.S. Rocket and Space Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
And we look forward to the Crew-1 mission that should be launching to the International Space Station this weekend.
Don't forget to get in touch and let us know your thoughts about what we're doing. Use @SpaceandThings1 on Twitter or tag us at Space and Things Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, or leave a review on your favorite podcast platform.
And please hit that share button if you're enjoying what we're doing. But for now, it's time for us to present to you episode 11 of the Space and Things podcast.
You're listening to the Space and Things podcast with Emily Carney and Dave Giles.
I'm Emily Carney.
And I'm Dave Giles, and welcome to episode 11 of our podcast. So, you survived, you're back home after a great weekend, I hope.
Yes, I had a wonderful weekend. I had a little hiccup getting home, but I'm home safe now. It wasn't a big deal. The plane on Sunday night was delayed. So the airline was like, look, you're not getting to your connection tonight. So do you want to stay here in Huntsville one more night? We'll give you a hotel room. And I was like, heck yeah, I'll do that. That's not a punishment, So I was like, yeah. So I ended up staying an unanticipated Sunday night, which was actually kind of nice. I wasn't upset about it. So I ended up leaving on Monday morning. Thankfully, I had yesterday off from work, or else that would have been kind of weird. But yeah, but it worked out spectacularly. I had an incredible weekend, and we're going to talk about that some more. It was amazing.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I can't wait to hear. The photos you posted were great, so I'm looking forward to hearing all about it.
Oh, that view is tremendous.
So I'm going to try and keep this bit short this week because we've got so much to talk about, from Emily's trip to Huntsville and with the Crew-1 launch. But this week in space. Last Thursday, the 5th of November, SpaceX launched yet another Falcon 9 rocket. This time it wasn't for Starlink satellites though, but to launch a satellite for the United States Space Force, and that's the second time they've done that this year. It was an early evening launch, so it was one of those lighten up the sky kind of launches, which I personally really love, with another perfect landing of the first stage. Lighten up the sky on November the 5th. My fellow British listeners probably watched plenty of other rockets launched that night, but that's another story. And some interesting news from China this week. On Saturday, a company called Galactic Energy had their maiden launch of their Ceres 1 rocket, which is named after the first asteroid discovered by humans. It's a 4-stage rocket which successfully deployed a communication satellite as part of the Apocalypse constellation, which sounds outrageous, but it provides users with transmission services in areas that don't have much coverage. And with the US election results, there is rumors that we may have a new NASA administrator soon, but I don't think we should cover that until it happens because it's all rumors at the moment. But there are stories floating around about that. But former astronaut Mark Kelly became the 4th astronaut to be elected to Congress. So Emily, can you name the other 3?
I'm about to cover Senate and Congress. If I get anything wrong, please jump in and correct me. Oops, I should have said that. I believe it's John Glenn.
Yep.
Jack Schmitt or Harrison Schmitt, the Apollo 17 astronaut. I think another one is technically he's not an astronaut, but he was a payload specialist. Bill Nelson. There's Jake Garn. Another case of somebody who was a legislator, technically not an astronaut. I know Jack Swigert was elected, but he didn't serve his time because he passed away.
It was those 4. It was Schmidt, Glenn, and Swigert that have previously been elected as astronauts, whereas the other 2 were already elected and became astronauts whilst they were elected. But did they become astronauts? I don't know. But anyway, they went to space. Yeah,
they're payload specialists. They went to space. It counts.
It does.
It counts.
So yeah, that's where we're at. And so Mark Kelly, obviously, twin brother of Scott Kelly, who did the Year in Space project, and the 2 of them. I met Mark Kelly last year. Absolutely lovely guy. He was at Kennedy Space Center the day I was there, and I saw him right by the shuttle Atlantis, which I thought was quite nice. Although he hasn't actually been on that one. But
Yeah, I think he was on a few other shuttles, but not that specific one.
yeah.
Yeah, I have not met Mark Kelly. He was at an event I was at, but I never met him. But I have met Bill Nelson, even though technically he's kind of not in the astronaut zone. He's called the payload specialist. I look at it this way: he went to space, so
Counts.
he's an astronaut.
Yeah.
He's been above the Kármán line, so I'm like, that counts. But I've met him before. Bill Nelson was a legislator. He was a senator for a real long time in my home state of Florida.
Oh, okay.
So I met him when I was a little kid, and I got his autograph. I still have his autograph, which is kind of cute. And I actually met him again. This is such a dorky thing. Last year at an ASF event, and I went up to him. I'm like, "You don't remember me from Adam, but I met you when I was real little and got your autograph." And he was like, "Oh, when was that? Last year?" I was like, "No, that was a while back. That was like in '85 or so." So yeah, I did meet you back in the day, but he was really kind and gracious, and I believe he only left office like a couple of years ago. So yeah, he's a real nice guy, and I always wanted to give him a Space Hipsters pen. Dang it. I haven't been able to, but because he definitely counts. But yeah,
he definitely does.
I've met him a couple times, and like I said, the first time I was just a little kid, so I'm sure, he's nice to every little kid, obviously, but second time he was very cool too, so that was kind of neat. It was like finishing a circle almost.
Fun fact for you, since John Glenn was elected to Congress in 1974, there have only been 4 years where there hasn't been an astronaut in elected office in the US, which is quite nice that astronauts are represented that way in America. I quite like that there's always someone there championing exploration of space who's been there, because I think that definitely gives a different perspective on government. I wish we had that. I hope Tim Peake runs for Parliament, because I think his perspective he won't, because I'm sure he's got no interest in doing such a job. But
he's smart.
Yeah, exactly. Who would be a politician? Yeah, for sure. I think it's useful to have people like that within the corridors of power.
I do want to add, there have been a few astronauts who've run for office who were not successful. I hate saying that. That sounds so mean.
Yeah.
But there have been a few astronauts who've run for office who did not win. Two of them I can think of were in, I think, 82 and 83 or 84. The first was Al Worden, who ran for office, I think, in West Palm Beach back in 82. And the second one was Jack Lausma, who also ran, I think, for, I want to say he ran for Senate.
I think there's been a couple of shuttle guys as well. I was reading today. I can't remember their names, but there's been a couple. So
anyway, yeah, they did run for office, but unfortunately, they were not. They did not win the office. And to my distant north in Canada, there have been some of their astronauts who have been in government positions, like Julie Payette and Mark Garneau, who were two Canadian astronauts. I don't know if Chris Hadfield will be the first singing one. So we'll see. We'll see.
He is wonderful.
I don't know if he's interested, but we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah. And that's about as political as I think we're ever going to get on this show.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not endorsing anybody as a candidate.
Yeah.
So I think I did post one time, like years ago, I found a picture of Jack Lausma running for Senate. And I said something dumb, like, yeah, this is a candidate I can endorse, and then people started going after me like, oh, so you're, and I'm like, I wasn't doing this politically. He's
I just like the guy.
Yeah. And he is a wonderful person. Yeah. So I love Jack.
Anyway, that's the news we've got this week. Obviously, next week's going to be, hopefully, will be a bigger week. But the Chinese story, I think, is interesting as well. There's apparently quite a few different companies doing stuff out there. So we don't hear much about it.
Yeah, the apocalypse.
Yeah, the apocalypse.
When I heard that, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That doesn't, yeah.
Ooh. That doesn't sound good.
No.
Are we going to, like, is this like the end of the world communication or something? Like,
exactly.
Like, when the world ends, this is like the last thing we've got. Like, hey, are you all right? Okay, he's dead. There's no response. Like, what's going on?
I mean, what? We're going to send something up called Armageddon as well?
I don't want to. Like, what is going on?
Yeah,
they could rename it something a little nice, like maybe unicorn or something. I don't know.
Normally things are named like a bit more inspirational, aren't they? But apocalypse is like the end of days. Like, no,
I'm not an expert on the Bible, but my husband explained to me that Revelations basically means the apocalypse in the Bible. So I'm like, if they change it to like Revelations constellation, I'm gonna be like, no, somebody's up to something. Like something is going on.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah. Anyway, I think on that note, let's move on.
We'll end that. Yeah. I hope we didn't just stumble onto something that we weren't supposed to know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next week they're gonna be like, Space and Things has been canceled. Like, what?
Yes, Dave and Emily have mysteriously disappeared.
Yeah, never were seen again. Like, oh my God. Alrighty, let's move on.
There it is. There's the buster. There's Flag. We're here. You did it. It sure is. We are here.
So, if you listened to last week's podcast, we talked all about Huntsville because Emily was about to visit Rocket City for the first time. And as we said earlier, she's now back. And I want to know all about your experience, Emily. So, did you learn anything new? What was the biggest surprise? What were your highlights? Come on, tell us all. I've seen some of your photos, but tell us all about it.
Okay, the biggest surprises for me personally was I'd never seen... there were two things. I'd never seen, of course, a Saturn V standing vertically. I was kind of not emotionally prepared for seeing how tall the Saturn V is. Seeing it when you fly in to Huntsville.
Oh, man.
You look out of the corner of your eye. I was on a little puddle jumper, like a little kind of a commuter plane coming into Huntsville. And I look out of the corner of my eye out of the window, and I had it closed for a while because I was trying to nap a little bit, but I opened it and I was like, oh my God, like there it is, I stayed in the Marriott that's right by the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, which I have to give them a shout out. They were really awesome. But I stayed in the Marriott there, and I had a room basically right in front of the Saturn V. And I don't know how I slept that whole weekend. Anytime the window was open, I just was like staring at it. It was just incredible because obviously I was born after 1973. I'd never seen one with my eyeballs vertically before. I've seen photos of them, but it's one thing to actually see in person, like, how did that thing get to the moon? It was so gigantic.
Yeah, exactly.
The second thing was seeing Skylab, which is my baby. Everybody's like, oh, great, she's talking about Skylab yet again. But seeing Skylab, seeing the solar panel winged out like that, you really get a sense of how enormous that space station really was. It was huge. So seeing the solar panel, I was like, oh my God, that's enormous. Like the pictures of it do not really do it any type of justice whatsoever.
Yeah, you don't get the perspective, do you?
No, the pictures are nice, but it's one thing to see a picture on your phone or on your computer or in a book. When you actually see it in person, you're like, that's freaking enormous. It's huge, and that's not even the whole entire space station. Basically all we had in the museum was the orbital workshop and the solar wing.
Yeah.
So I went in the area by the orbital workshop, and I was just like, it looks exactly the way, it looks exactly how you picture in the books, the way it's orientated with the spinny chair. It's called something. It's not called the spinny chair. It's called something different. It's basically a test to kind of check their vestibular system. But you see like that, you see the exercise bike, you see the famous shower that they had, the little shower unit. You see the wardroom where they ate, and you see some of the areas where they look like Navy. In the Navy, we had bunk beds called racks, and they're really small. They're about 6 feet by 2 feet. And Skylab sort of had the same setup. Part of me wonders if it's because much of the crews were Navy guys. But they had sort of the same setup, but of course they had more room in there because they were in space. So they had a little more freedom than, say, somebody on Earth than one of those would have. But anyway, so I looked around in that, I was like, wow, kind of I did a panorama, like just kind of looking back and forth. And then I looked up and I was like, it's huge in there. I mean, you just look up and you see all the room that they had in there just to exercise or just float around or to, do tumbles or get suited up, what have you. I mean, it's incredible. Like I said, I've been reading about Skylab for ages. I have probably tons of pictures. I probably have more pictures of it than anybody on this planet. And just seeing those things with my eyeballs, it really just drove the point that this was a huge capability we had, and we didn't use it that long, which kind of made me sad in a way.
Did it feel like you were at home?
Yes, it did. Oh boy, I don't want to start crying. We were talking on Saturday, and I went to the underwater trainer, which is outside, and that shows the Apollo telescope mount looks like, and the multiple docking adapter, and it shows the airlock and all that stuff like that, and that's where the crews would train to change the film canisters on the telescope, and going out there and seeing it, man, I got real, like, it sounds so cheesy, but I got real emotional because I was like, man, I feel like I've never seen this, but I've known this all my life. I feel like, it's the weirdest.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird feeling because I'm like, I've never seen this, but I know it like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
It was very odd. So, and I've met some of the people who, worked in there and stuff. And it just was a kind of a, not a creepy feeling, but just an odd, like, wow, it's a real thing. It's not just something I read about, you know? So
yeah. It
was incredible. Like, I got a little emotional out there. So yeah, it was beautiful. And, I got to see a lot of other stuff too, other than those two things. They also have Apollo 16 there. They have the command module there.
It's beautiful.
Which
it's such a beautiful display. It's one of my favorite ones that's been displayed. It's really, really special.
Yeah, I looked inside a little bit. I can't believe they fit 3 guys in there.
Crazy.
I mean, that to me is just mind blowing because I'm like, there's such a small volume in there. I mean, it's the opposite of looking in Skylab. You're like, oh my God, they had all that room. Yeah, like they could do anything in there. And in Apollo 16, you do not feel that way. You're like instantly like, like you feel kind of claustrophobic, and I'm not a claustrophobic person. So yeah, I was a little awed by what a small living space they had. I'm sure it was bigger in space because they were able to stretch out and stuff, but Apollo 16 was really amazing. I love the way it was displayed. They also had the MQF, the mobile quarantine facility there.
Yeah. With a great story behind it. It's one of the 3 they had, right? So
it was a fish hatchery.
Yeah, and it disappeared for years. No one knew where it was, and then they found it and they've restored it to how it looked when Apollo 12 landed, and when Pete Allen and Richard were in there, and they've put all the original furniture, and the Scrabble board is from 1970 and things like that, or 1969. Yeah. Everything about it is cool.
That was probably the biggest surprise for me because I honestly did not know that was there. And seeing how, I mean, that was a small living space.
Exactly.
I don't know how those guys didn't kill each other in there. I mean, Apollo 12 must have gotten along really beautifully because I don't think I could. I love my husband with all my heart. I don't see how I could live in a volume that small with him for 2 weeks.
I don't think they did all 2 weeks in there. I think they got transported from the aircraft carrier to Houston, and then
That's true. I forgot.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's how it was.
Yeah, but even for a limited amount of time, you're like, oh my God, this is like I would just want to sleep all the time so nobody would bother me.
Especially after just spending a week or 10 days with someone in a command module, which is even smaller.
Yeah, and you're all like, you just want to shower, and oh my God.
Exactly.
Yeah, those guys were a special kind of tough.
Yeah, they were good sports.
They were good sports. I do want to give a plug to I want to give a shout out to a few people who really helped me out when I was in Huntsville and really helped me have a great experience. So Laura Owensby, a friend of mine, showed me around. Rebecca Hitt, who works there, she's also really awesome. She showed me around. I want to also thank David Hitt, even though I didn't meet up with him. He's a friend of mine who lives there, and he sort of gave me some tips around there. Tracy Haas, and also Chris Wade, who we met up for a little bit there. So they helped me out a lot. I do want to say a few things also. The Space and Rocket Center, I went there to do research, basically to see what Skylab really looked like, because it's one thing to know something like when you read it, and it's another thing to know something when you actually go see it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of do that experience, but I really underestimated the archives they have at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. They have stuff, if you need to know anything about, rockets and von Braun's plans for certain rockets, it's probably there. So if you're a historian or a researcher of any kind, that's a really great place to visit if you have an interest in those areas. But I do want to give a shout out. They have a program now for adults, and I'm reading from the press release here. Our new weekend adult program brings you the best in space exploration history and gets you ready for what's next. Their weekend program runs Saturdays 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. and Sundays 9 a.m. through 3 p.m., allowing time for people to explore the Rocket Center at their own leisure after the conclusion of the program on Sunday. By the way, if you do this program, I think you do have to book your own hotel room, and there is a Marriott on site, and there's also a lot of hotels around if you don't want to stay at the Marriott. But the experience includes astronaut training exercises, challenges, a tour of the Aviation Challenge aircrafts, a show in the Intuitive Planetarium, or a movie in the National Geographic Theater, which is on site. Museum admission for Saturday and Sunday, which by itself is $50. And you get lunch every day. But I think that experience is $199, and you have to schedule it through their website. Mm-hmm. But I just want to make a case. Museums are hurting right now.
Big time.
Obviously, not as many people are traveling and going to these places. I mean, if you support spaceflight and if you support these great areas and these great museums, and not just the Space and Rocket Center, just any spaceflight museum, I highly suggest, if you can't get out and do these programs, which are really cool, some places have interactive events online, and some places you can even donate to them online, so it's something to think about, just because I know it's a really difficult time for museums. So
absolutely. Yeah.
It was incredible. I didn't want to come back home. I was overwhelmed. I love Kennedy Space Center, and I'm not dissing Kennedy Space Center at all, but KSC is kind of the launch operations place, and it's got all the launch pads, which is really cool. But you feel like Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, that's where they really made rockets and they made things.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is really fascinating. So I feel like if you're really into space history, you kind of have to visit around to see, okay, this is what each center did.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Kennedy Space Center is the place for beginners. Like, that's where you go and you learn about it from scratch. You can go there and not know anything, but then when you're ready to level up, head over to Huntsville and you learn a little bit more, and you're going to see some other stuff. And it's not that Kennedy Space Center doesn't cater to that, but Huntsville does it a little bit better.
I agree.
And there's more stuff around the town which is appropriate. It's not just what is in the museum; it's the whole town and the experience.
Exactly,
is part of it. They really do have some great stuff there. My pie in the sky thing, which I would love them to do with the replica Saturn V they have out front, is to build the mobile launch tower.
That would be cool.
How cool would that be? And then you could walk up or get the lift up and have that experience of going up alongside the rocket like the astronauts would have done. I mean that's really pie in the sky, probably far too expensive for them to even consider doing. But I mean, imagine seeing that from the sky as well. This rocket not just standing there but on a launch pad would be something really special. But that's just that's not a criticism of them, because it's amazing, and just being able to see it and stand next to that replica, especially when right next to it is lying down, is one of the real things as well. It is wonderful. There's some great stuff in that Davison Center though. The Apollo 1 suits they've got in there.
Yes.
Not obviously the ones they were wearing when the accident happened, but they're backup suits, and that display cabinet is wonderful. Richard and Owen Garriott's father and son spacesuits. It's a great cabinet. I love that. And I'm not sure how many father-son combos there have been, or generational combos there have been.
There have been 3.
Has there been 3? Is there?
Yeah, there have been 3. 2 Russian combos and 1 American.
Yep. So it doesn't happen often. At the moment, it hasn't happened often, and I love the fact that they've actually thought to put those suits next to each other. So I'm a big fan. I was a big fan of that, and the replica of von Braun's office. I thought, because you've seen that in so many photos.
Yeah, where he's just sitting at his desk, on the phone
with the model rockets behind it, and they've got the model rockets there and all that kind of stuff. And I quite, it brings it to life. As you said, it's not when you've read all the books and when you've seen all these photos, when you then start seeing this stuff in the flesh and you start seeing these things that were used and the real life applications of them, it brings it to life, and the scale of them as well. I think it just adds so much to it, and to the sense of wonder and the sense of achievement of what happened back then. So yeah, it's a great place. I'm glad you had a good time. I'm really glad you had a good time.
I'm hoping the next place I can go to, if all this asterisks, if all this madness ends next year, that's a quaint thought, but a fantasy thought, because I don't know if it will. I don't know if I'll be taking a trip for a while, because I know COVID cases are going up in the United States now. But if things, the vaccine comes out and, everything kind of winds down, my next destination is hopefully, I'd like to go back to Huntsville, but my next destination I'm planning on doing is the Kansas Cosmosphere.
Fantastic.
I have to go there. Everybody's like, you got to go there. You haven't gone there yet. And I'm like, I haven't, and I got to go there. Everybody's telling me this is like an amazing place, and I have to do it. So that's my next destination. We'll see. Hopefully next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very special place. It's a very special place that we've spoken about briefly before, and I'm sure we will speak about it again.
Oh, I plan on going.
Yeah,
we'll see.
The only downside about that place is it doesn't have the history that Huntsville as a town does, and the fact that it's not associated to a NASA center is a bit of a shame. But it's a great museum.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. I do have to add this before we move on. It was kind of neat. My friend Laura Owensby, we drove down. We drove to the Alabama Welcome Center because she's like, you got to see this.
You do have to see it.
So we drove into Tennessee and then did I haven't been to Tennessee since I was a kid, so that was nuts. So we drove into Tennessee and I'm like, is this mountains? And I was like, because I'm from Florida, we don't have any single mountain here. Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, they got mountains up in here. And then we turn around and then we get to the Alabama Welcome Station and there's a Saturn 1B there. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
It is incredible.
It's a great drive. That whole drive is wonderful because the scenery around you is wonderful. But then when that rocket appears, it's like, what? This is nuts. And it's an actual, it's not a replica. That's an actual Saturn 1B.
It is. It's nuts. I'm like, what? Are they launching from here? Like, and it's random. It's like, you're just like, what the hell? There's a big old Saturn 1B here. It is crazy. But, and plus it was I do have to say it was a beautiful time of year. We don't have seasons where I live. Yeah. We have like 2 seasons. We have summer and kind of spring, sort of spring, very brief spring, where it's sort of okay out. It's not, disgusting. So seeing that, the leaves change and the beautiful trees, it was just perfect. I'm very sad I'm home and I have to go back to work and do normal people things now. So it was wonderful. I had a great time. And if you can get out there and do one of their cool experiences, if you can get out there if you have time or if you're able to travel, if you're interested, please do it. I highly recommend it.
I didn't know those were a thing. I wish I did. That sounds great. Doing a whole weekend there and doing all the activities, and then, as you say, having time to explore the town and the center as well. Yeah, I mean that's right up my street. Hopefully, I'll get to do that one day. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool opportunity for adults who are really interested in that stuff, and I think it's worth it. To me, it's worth every penny. Like this whole trip I took this weekend was worth every cent. So I had a marvelous time.
Fantastic. Glad to hear.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
This Saturday at 7:49 p.m., SpaceX and NASA are hoping to send up to launch the first crew rotation mission to the International Space Station as part of the agency's Commercial Crew program. Following the success of the Demo 1 launch during the summer, which saw astronauts launched into space from the U.S. for the first time since 2011, the Crew Dragon spacecraft is now deemed operational, and this is the first regular crew mission. NASA astronauts Michael Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker, along with Soichi Noguchi of JAXA, will launch on SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Crew Dragon spacecraft, which has been named Resilience for this mission. And I, for one, am very excited.
Yeah, me too.
So what do you think, Dave?
I can't wait for this. This is, I mean, I'm not so sure it's going to happen this weekend, but we'll yeah, I'm always so skeptical about these things. I hope it does happen, and good luck to the crew. It's just exciting that you know, after the excitement of the summer, you know, we're back at it, and here we go again, and now this is the new normal for space flight in America and for NASA, and it's a great crew. I've enjoyed what they've been putting up on social media. I like the fact that the routine of the space station is now going to get mixed up a bit with slightly bigger crews, which enables them to do more things up there. So yeah, I think this is great, and as it said, it just feels like this is now the start. Although we had that big thing in the summer, this is the start. I doubt it's going to get as much press as Doug and Bob got in the summer. It'd be interesting to see that, actually, how much of the excitement of the summer, even across in this country, there was so many people were excited about that first one. And it'd be interesting to see whether any of that appears again this time round. Or whether that just disappears. I mean, it's going to be after midnight here, and if it's a clear night, that means we will see it coming over, which is good fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see it outside because it'll be dark, and
yeah,
hopefully it'll be clear. We're supposed to get a tropical storm, but I'm praying it's hopefully maybe passed by then.
Yeah,
we get those a lot, so I'm not really too worried about it.
But yeah, it's just exciting, isn't it? It's just, you know, we both said when we on our first podcast, we both said that the Bob and Doug mission was the highlight of our year so far. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the views from in the spaceship and then spacecraft and the four of them being in there and the suits, the whole excitement. The SpaceX did it so well last time, and I'm very much excited about Saturday. I've got the whole day, you know, even though it's not going to start till late. I've got the whole evening just sat there waiting for me just to sit and watch the whole of the suiting up process and everything. I'm excited.
Yeah, like you said, that sounds horrible. I'm kind of expecting a scrub, just, you know, because SpaceX does scrub a lot, but then again, I mean, to be honest, every launch vendor has its share of scrubs. We've seen ULA scrub a lot this year. So, and you'd rather be safe than sorry, obviously, especially with a crewed mission with people on it, 4 people. But I'm just incredibly excited. This will be the first 4-person launch since STS-135, which was in 2011, the last space shuttle launch. And that was the first 4-person launch since, I think it was 1983. Yeah, thinking back, I think STS-6 only had 4 people on it. Yeah, so there hasn't been many just 4 people launches, so that's kind of rare. So that's kind of neat to see that we're kind of ramping up to that. And kind of gives me 1980 vibes in a way. 1980s vibes, which is kind of cool. I'm just really excited that we're finally seeing sort of a normal ISS rotation, because as you see now, when a Soyuz comes back down, usually we have only 3 people on for a while, and usually 1 American and 2 Russians, or something, 1 American, 1 European, 1 Russian, something to that effect. So like you said, it'll be neat to see the ISS crew kind of expand, and hopefully they'll be able to do more science, which, I'm not going to, I don't want to get political, but we need to get back to doing more science, I think. So it'll be exciting to see what kind of research can be done aboard the space station. I was doing a little bit of fun reading. I know I'm a nerd. I was doing some fun reading last week about some of the experiments that have been done aboard the space station, like more recently. One of them I'm interested in. It's I want to say it's like a medical one, very medical terminology, which I don't quite understand, but it's basically to help leukemia patients. And as somebody with a blood disorder, I don't have leukemia, but as somebody who has something that I pray does not develop into that, one day I was reading about it, and I was like, I really underestimated how much space is really going to help, or is en route to helping people here on Earth who might have, really devastating illnesses or something. Hopefully it can help people beat that, you know, and I know how important that is because, you don't want to, that's some news you don't want to get. And if you do get it, you want to know that, okay, I'm going to beat this thing.
Exactly, yeah.
So I really don't take that for granted at all. So I just think it's super that they're doing things like that up there. I really loved it. I forgot what exactly the experiment was. I'm not a medical expert. I want to say it's had something to do with immunology or something like that, but I could be totally wrong. But very medical language that I'm not totally familiar with. but it basically had to do with mitigating, leukemia or blood cancers. And I was like, okay, that got my interest because that's something that can help, people I know.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I just think that's incredible.
For sure. But it's a good crew. It's a diverse crew, and I know some people don't think that stuff's important, but I think it is important. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at these events right now as something that can pull people together, having had all this division in the world at the moment, and you get these events where you have different faces and different nationalities working together and doing stuff together. I think it's important, and I think it's good that straight from the very first operational mission, they're bringing someone in from a different space agency, and it would have been just as important if it was a Canadian or European or whatever. The fact they've done that, I think, is important. I think it's showing, look, this is about the bigger picture, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to work together with people, as we've spoken about before, I'm all in favor of that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree, especially, and like you said, after this year, I can't speak for the United Kingdom or England because I don't live there. In the United States, it's been just a wild year. There's been so much just strife. We're going through a lot of social changes here.
Yeah.
And I think it's for the better. I think we all, I don't want to get too political, but there are some issues that need to be addressed. Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely. And I think NASA I don't think they purposefully did it. I think they chose the people who are best qualified for this mission, but NASA, showing that, okay, we got an African-American person on this mission. We got a woman, we got a NASA pilot, and we got somebody from JAXA. I just think that, like you said, it really shows that it takes everybody to work together in space flight. I'm one of those people, I try to look real forward into the future, and I try to look, 100 years from now, if we're living in space, let's say we're actually living in, settlements or something, not us, but,
descendants,
ancestors, descendants. Yeah. And I look at that and I'm thinking, it's not going to just take one type of person to go to space. It's going to take people from, all over the world, all sorts of nationalities, all sorts of languages, all sorts of cultures, and I think, like you said, I think that's really important for us to kind of hammer down that it's going to take all of us to do this. It's not just one type of person. So
exactly.
I totally agree.
Exactly. And it's about inspiring that next generation as well, which I think is important, and having the role models that make people from any background look up and say, this can be me as well. And glass ceilings are there to be broken, and they should be broken, and they make things accessible. Be that whether you're a woman, whether you're a person of color or from a different country, it's not all about white men in America doing things, and I think that's important going forward. Yeah. Because ultimately, and clearly, this is the fact that NASA are able to pick this crew, or SpaceX are able to pick this crew, is because they've had this policy in place for a while now. So astronauts don't just appear out of nowhere. They've had this selection process, which is enabled bringing, and this goes back to the 1979, really, when they first, or 1978, when that first group of shuttle astronauts were selected. NASA started saying we need to reflect society more, and it's been a gradual process of which is clearly there. And now, if you're a kid, no matter what you are, even sexuality, as we spoke about recently, there's someone representing you, and you can look up and say, oh, science is for me, engineering is for me, being a pilot is for me. All those different avenues you've got to be an astronaut can be for you, regardless of how you started in life or who you are as a person. And I think that's great, and we need more of that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree totally. This is a little tangent, but I remember as a kid seeing Judy Resnick. She was a Jewish woman, and growing up and seeing her, as a Jewish person, was like, oh my God, that's somebody who's like me, who has, kind of wild curly hair. My hair's straightened right now, but who has like really wild, who's got kind of a similar thing. oh my God, she's in space, and I was like, after that point, she was like my idol, because I was just like, that's the kind of, I can do that, you know, or anybody can do that who looks like that. You know, it's not something where, I would read in my space books and it was all guys.
Yeah.
And then I was like, great, there's women. Somebody like me can, have a career in that industry. It was a big deal for me to see, somebody like me represented. So I agree, representation is important, and some people don't just smash the glass ceiling, they rock it right through it.
Exactly. And it's important not just for the pinnacle of it. I mean, this is why this is important. You have astronauts who are the pinnacle of the space industry, really, but it filters down. And if you have representation, visible representation, which happens with your astronaut corps, then the lower levels will eventually also look that way as well. And you look back at mission control in the 60s, it was all white men. You look at mission control now and it's not. And a lot of that is because of things they put in place to try and inspire everyone to say, oh, I can get into space. Because not everyone can be an astronaut, but everyone has the potential to work within that industry if they want. There'll be a place for you somewhere along the line, no matter what your skill set. But you still need to see someone at the top that makes you go, oh, that industry is for me.
Exactly. You need representation at the very top to feel like you're going to be included at any stage underneath.
Exactly. Because that they're the people calling the shots at the top. So that's we digressed a little bit there, but essentially that's why I think what's going on at the moment with the crews that are coming out and the future crews that have been announced are great. And I hope this launch does happen this weekend, but if not, I hope it happens pretty soon.
Yeah, I'll look forward to watching it. I hope I don't jinx it by watching it from home. So I do, if it's clear out, I plan on watching it outside. So I don't know if I'll get down there, because people are like, are you going to go travel down there this weekend? I'm like, I just got back from traveling, so I'm kind of tired.
Yeah.
But I'll, at the very least, I'll probably watch it from here.
Yeah, I think it's probably not a bad idea to sit this one out. There's going to be loads of launches. That's the thing. It's not you're going to have other opportunities, especially if you live in Florida.
Oh yeah, there's launches going on all the time between SpaceX, ULA, and there's always something going on. So yep, there'll be other opportunities.
We may also this week have another ULA launch. They're going to try again. So hopefully the one we talked about last week didn't go up.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
They're going to try again this week. And also we may have there's rumors that there's going to be some Starship news over the next week or so as well.
Ooh, okay.
They might be doing one of their quite ambitious hop to quite a height with the new with their current model that they're working on, their current prototype. So that may happen soon, which would be super exciting. And weirdly, last time they did when Bob and Doug went up on Demo 1, that week they did a Starship thing happen that very day. It exploded. They had an explosion at Boca Chica, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so again, just within that, it shows the pace in which SpaceX are working at when you see, okay, it wasn't that long ago that Bob and Doug went up and Starship was just a fuel tank on the floor, which was exploding, and now it's a fully erected spaceship prototype, which is about to hop up to 50,000 feet, which is quite something, or 20,000 feet.
That's a lot. Yeah. That's just below like a aircraft.
Exactly, and then land vertically. And it's crazy. But Elon this week as well, just to, again, I mean, some people hate this guy, and I understand why. He's talking about but this week he's come out and said that he's expecting to have precision landing soon, where essentially Starship is going to launch and land on the same site in exactly the same spot. So it's going to land on its launch pad.
That's nuts.
I mean, I can't see that happening, but that's what he's now talking about doing. It just seems ridiculous, but that's the ambition of that company, and that's why things are moving so quickly, because they're actually trying to do things which are ridiculous.
It sounds nuts, but I think they're going to do it.
They probably will.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do it.
They probably will.
He might be nuts, and he might have, stuff on sale for $69,420 on his website. Yeah. But for those of you who don't know what that means, do not look it up. But I believe him, honestly. I think because I mean, I know he has his moments, and like I said, I know he's not well loved by everybody. But I think they'll accomplish their goals. So
Yeah.
I really do.
Whether you like him or not, he's mobilized a workforce to try and do things exceptionally and do it quickly. And it's something I don't think that could have happened under a government organization.
Yes.
Not now. I mean, back in the day it may have done, but I don't think now that the structure and infrastructure is there to be able to take the risks that they're taking and push those barriers. So, and it's not that he's the only company doing it, but they're definitely leading the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've come a long way.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have a nice thing to talk about next week.
Hey, this is great. Talk about being a spaceman. This is it.
That's it for this week, and thanks for tuning in.
Yes, and an extra special thanks to those who have joined us on Patreon. We've uploaded a couple of extra things over there in the last couple of weeks, so please make sure you log on and have a look. And if you haven't considered it, why don't you join us over there? www.patreon.com/space and things. Of course, the more the merrier, and the more of you who do it means we'll be able to do even more with this podcast.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you can also donate or buy a t-shirt or a hoodie on our website too, which is www.spaceandthingspodcast.com.
And a special thanks to Jason Winstanley for upgrading his 4-star review on Apple Podcasts to a 5-star review after our discussion last
Jason.
week. We do love a bit of constructive criticism, and we hope that we continue to improve what we're doing. So please do go leave a review or send us a message, as we spoke about earlier. We'd love to hear from you, good and bad. Let us know. Or if we've missed anything out, do let us know. But for now, remember, in space, no one can hear you meme.
Space and Things has been brought to you by And Things Productions.